Good afternoon, everybody. We're happy to meet everyone at our webinar. And the theme of the webinar is acquiring IOP readings without Applanation or anesthetics. My name is Luba Prishvina, and I represent EasyTone brand here. We also see here Mr. Tom Gregory, who is our trade representative in the United States. Tom?
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining in. Excited to have you here. Just a little bit about myself real quick, and then we'll move on. I'm an independent contractor, and all I know is eyes. I've been doing nothing but eyes for the past 40 years in some various stages, and have had the pleasure and the opportunity to bring some exciting new technologies to market over the years. I reside in Texas, and I'm very happy to have a friend of mine here this evening, Dr. John Coble, who will present to the group his findings on using the technology to obtain intraocular pressure readings. Many of you already know Dr. John Coble. He's a former Texas Optometric Board Chairman, past president of the Texas Optometric Association, a former American Optometric Association Optometrist of the Year, and a good friend to all of us here in the field of optometry, ophthalmology, and eye care. He's very well known, very well spoken, and he will take over from here and introduce the technology that we're all talking about, and that's the EasyTone. Go ahead, Dr. Coble.
Thank you, Luba, and thank you, Tom. It's very happy to be able to introduce this new technology to the United States. I think it's a great technology. I want to thank Elamed for sponsoring this webinar, and I thank Tom Gregory and Associates for enlisting me to this. As it says there, I am receiving some compensation from Elamed. Don't know what it is, but I'll receive some. I did a non-biased study with no compensation. I did this on my own so I could see how some comparisons are, and we're going to go into that in just a little bit. Just some basics. This is not a glaucoma lecture, but I do want to mention that, glaucoma does damage the optic nerve. We measure that with the tonometry. There's many ways to measure glaucoma and diagnose glaucoma. Tonometry is not the glaucoma test that your patients say, but it is part of the diagnosis. Tonometry measures the pressure on the eye, the firmness of the eye, and with the intraocular pressure. We all know that. There's several ways of doing that. I took it upon myself with some of my interns when Tom introduced me to the EasyTone. I wanted to see how it compared. We know that every handheld tonometer is compared to Goldman Applanation tonometry, and to get their FDA and the ISO approvals on there. But I wanted to see how they compared to each other. Each handheld, how did they compare to each other? And my conclusion came out, there's a lot of similarities between some, but a little bit of deviation in some of the errors on there. The ones that I chose are the ones I had in my office. The eye care, the Tonopen Avia, the Tonopen XL, and the EasyTone. Now, the Tonopen XL and Tonopen Avia, I only used the Avia instead of the Tonopen XL, only because that was the one that I had most. I wanted to compare one thing to another. As I compared these, I wanted to look at why would you use some and the others. Now, the Tonopens all use a disposable sterile tip. That's some you have to buy extra. It's disposable on each one. It keeps everything nice and sterile, which we really like because of all the viruses. But those tips are expensive. The other thing you have to use is you have to use topical anesthesia with the Tonopen. A lot of times with anesthesia, some people have reactions to it. They get papillary hypertrophy with that. There can get all kinds of allergic reactions. I've had some people faint with using anesthesia. Also, you use direct corneal contact. If somebody is touching the cornea, There's several things that can occur with that. Different corneal problems is one thing you have to consider. Apprehension. Some people get very anxious when they're having their cornea touched, even though you have the anesthetic in there. The other thing you have to look out for is when you're touching the cornea, depending upon who's doing it, you could end up with some corneal stippling or even an abrasion. So that's something we have to take in consideration. Those things are very rare, but something you have to consider. Now move over to the eye care. The eye care is an interesting instrument. It has a reusable tip. It's a little bit delicate with that tip, and it can bend. It's very, you don't have to use any sterile tips, but you can clean it and use disinfectant on it, so it works real well. You don't need any anesthesia, so that is good. So you don't have to worry about any problems with the anesthesia or any problems, people having problems with it. It still does touch the cornea. It pops on the cornea like 100 times in a second. And so you still have that apprehension for somebody that doesn't like to have their eyes touched. So then we move over to the EasyTon. The EasyTon, there's no anesthetic used, there's no disposables, and there's no corneal contact. So you don't have to worry about anybody being apprehensive with the anesthesia. No disposable, so the cost is a little less on that. And there's no corneal contact, so you don't have to worry about abrasions or any other problems with that. So that works out real well. And the tip is able to be cleaned with regular disinfection. Some of the comparisons that we had, we put it on a scale here and compared the eye care with EasyTon and the eye care with the Tonopen. And when I looked at these, we had 24 cases. That's 24 patients, 48 eyes, and almost 83% compared within 1 to 3 millimeters with the eye care. Whereas I look at the Tonopen, we had 63% within 1 to 3, but almost 80% between 1 and 5. So they all compared very well with our small test zones that we did in our office. Now the Tonopen, the EasyTon looks about the size of the Tonopen XL. When I started looking at it, it's about the same size as that. It takes 1 to 2 seconds to do. You can measure it very well. Everything works out very well with that. You can do it in a sitting or prone position. If you're laying down, it makes it a lot easier. If you're sitting in a chair and your chair will not lean back, it's real easy for you to go ahead and just kind of slide forward in the chair and tip the head back. We'll go over that in a little bit on how some of that is done on there. But it's accurate, it's painless, and it's real easy. I like using it a lot on children and these hypersensitive patients that we've been talking about. If they're touching the lid, they're not as apprehensive as they are if you're going to the cornea. I've had patients faint before, as we all have, and we don't want that if we can get away with that. It's very convenient. It does 100 measurements with one touch. If you push it too far down, it'll tell you to do it again. But once you get at the practice at it, it works really well. Now, if you look at the screen, you see how I have the patient lying parallel to the floor as much as you possibly can. Their eye is pointing 45 degrees up. We have a technique to allow you to do that. We have them look at their thumb, and I'll show you that in a little bit too, if we can. But it goes right on the eyelid. It's a transpalpebral digital tonometer. So it goes right on the lid, through the lid, into the sclera. So you're not touching the cornea, which makes it really nice for a lot of different situations. Looking over here at the side, on the right side of the screen, the cadaver eye test kind of shows you how it was done to set up how the measurements were. But if you look at the eye on the screen there, it's at a 45-degree angle. The tonometer is touching above the lashes, and so that's kind of where you want to have it. So that's a real good picture of how to be done there. I like using this on patients that are wearing contacts. If they're wearing contacts, it's real difficult to do a tonometry over the contact lens, so you end up taking it off With a tonopin, you put anesthetic on, then you put the contact back on. So you're disrupting, and you're really disrupting your patient flow. So you put it over the eyelid and you get a great pressure. They don't have to remove the contacts. It makes it really easy. If somebody has had keratoplasty, corneal transplant, keratoconus, even LASIK patients, I'm always hesitant on LASIK patient exactly how the measurement's really coming out, because the cornea is a little thinner in certain places. If you don't get it in one spot, do you have to do pachymetry all over? With this, you don't have to worry about pachymetry or any other corneal problems on there. It is FDA and ISO and CE approved. So we know that everything has been approved. So there shouldn't be any problems with anything like that. It's a great, if you're going out and do screenings at schools or screenings at senior centers, it's really wonderful to have on situations like that, because you don't have to carry any anesthetic. You don't have to carry any extra tools or any extra, basically you don't carry anything except that and a little disinfectant every time you do it. And I would disinfect the end. You can disinfect it with just normal disinfectant, or we use alcohol pads, and that works well so far. You don't have to worry about patients with anesthetic. Dry eyes, we know that dry eyes can cause problems with certain readings. So that works out real well. Persons with corneal surgeries, as we mentioned, with keratoplasty, don't worry about. If somebody comes in and had a foreign body, or they've had a laceration or a abrasion to their cornea, you really need to take their pressures, but you don't want to take it over the abrasion. So this works extremely well in situations like that. So it's very versatile in those situations. The really good thing about it is that it's portable. It uses AAA batteries instead of having an expensive battery that you have to order from the manufacturer and pay a higher price for. It just uses AAA batteries. So there's 2 AAA batteries in it. Lasts a long time. I've been using one for quite a while, and it seems to be doing great. So with that, I'd like to go backwards and show you a couple things on. Let me go to previous ones. But as you look at this patient right here on my right, the head needs to be a little more parallel. The picture came out a little, it's more parallel to the ground than what it shows right there. But you need the patient parallel to the ground, the tonometer perpendicular to that. And as you look at the eye, I'm taking one finger and pulling the lid up taut, so they're taking the wrinkles out of it, if you will. And I'm looking at the limbus, and you're looking above the limbus at the sclera. So you want about 1 millimeter of the sclera showing, and then you take the tonopin or the EasyTon, and you move it about 1.5 or so millimeters above the lid line, and then you just push it down. It gives you a very fast, quick reading. So that works out extremely well. So at this point, I don't have any other things to offer except that the EasyTon is a wonderful new instrument. I have seen transpalpebral tonopens and tonometers in the past. I've never been impressed with them. This one I've been very impressed with. It works very well, very accurate, and very repeatable. So, Tom, you have anything to add on this?
No, I don't. Just for reference, we have considerable experience here. Of course, everybody knows Dr. Coble's experience, but you may not know that I helped bring the very first tonopin to market almost 36 years ago. And we were responsible for placing somewhere around 3,500 tonopins into the marketplace. And Dr. Coble highlighted some differences between the tonopin and our EasyTon, and he's spot on. The complaints that I used to get seemed to go by the wayside with the EasyTon. That was the cost of the tips, The anesthetic use that's required with the patient is no longer with the EasyTon, and the readings.
The battery replacement too.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. I forgot. Yeah, absolutely.
I paid for some.
Yeah. So I'm real happy to be representing this device here in the United States, and we're working closely with our colleagues from Russia. And Dr. Coble is a beta site for me and for the device here in the United States. And just real happy to see that Dr. Coble had taken the time and the resources on his own to follow up and provide his findings on his study, non-biased. And so I want to thank Dr. Coble, and I want to thank Luba for the opportunity to present here in the United States. And if you would, you'll see the email addresses down below. Once this webinar concludes, you can email either of us or both of us with any questions that you may have, and we would be delighted to answer those for you. So I'll wrap it up from here and give it back to Luba.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Dr. Coble. It was very nice and informative presentation of EasyTone usage experience, and I couldn't do it in a better. So thank you for all this. And also in the text messages to the webinar, you can find homepage for EasyTone tonometer available, and also the link to the video tutorial, which provides all details of measurements for the all the details of measurements of using the tonometer.
Yeah. And Luba, I would recommend that there is a learning curve to using the tonometer. If you're not doing it exactly the way you want to do it, you'll get a little frustrated at first, but use the video and it'll show you exactly how to do it, and you'll love it after that point.
Okay, thank you for this remark. And actually, you will see the link to the video in the email with the record of the webinar, which we send to all our partners and potential users of the EasyTone. Thank you all. Maybe there is something you think you should add, Dr. Coble, about the usage of the tonometer?
No, the only thing that I like the portability of it. I like the parts of it that, especially the AAA batteries, the no extra things that you need with it. I mean, it's just when you get it, you get it. You don't have to buy a lot of extra things along the way. Those tips and anesthetic and things like that, that cost money. And as reimbursement keeps getting lower and lower for us doctors, anytime you can save a little bit, I think it works well. I think it's great for those, as I mentioned, if you're going to do screenings at senior centers, it's wonderful to do things like that. So being portable as it is and durable as it is, and it's very durable, I do recommend it for people, especially if you're a contact lens practice. I so many times my textbook contact lens on somebody, and I needed pressures, and now I don't have to worry about that. I just go ahead and do them with the EasyTon.
Yeah, very good points. Very good points. I might add, you may have right now, those watching here on the webinar may have a question about the price of the unit. And I will say that you'll be pleasantly surprised to see that it's about half the cost of the TonoPen Avia, and also the eye care tonometer as well. So its value is tremendous when it comes to needing those critical pressure readings in your practice. So, yeah.
So if you're a veteran optometrist, or if you're a new doctor, it's well worth your time to investigate this. And I'm very happy to be able to help introduce this into the United States for us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think this is the best final for the webinar. So thank you all for attention, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.